Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for being here. We are on day 8, and as the days go by, I find that I am getting more and more tired. I am not as enthusiastic as I was when I started or before I started, but it has to be done. That is why I talked about the 3/3 rule. A third of the time it is exciting, a third of the time it is nothing, a third of the time it is boring, not exciting, very hard, you feel like quitting. So I'm at the third where I am just there. I'm just getting on with it. And on day 8 was I was supposed to do 38 kilometers of cycling. I realized on day 7 that I can split my activity into 2. So today also I split my activity into 2, and I did 20 kilometers of cycling in the morning. I was supposed to do the remaining 18 kilometers in the evening, but it rained. So I could not go out and cycle. What did I do? I ran in the house 18 kilometers. So those are some of the challenges I'm experiencing. You know, sometimes when you plan, you think and hope that everything is linear. Everything remains constant, but we know life is not linear. Things are not constant. Things change. There are challenges, there are things that change. And my biggest prayer in this challenge is that I don't get sick or an injury that will hinder my progress. I'm hoping to finish this in 45 days. On this day, my body is getting used to the challenges, and I think also part of it is psychological, because now my mind knows that every other day we are reducing a kilometer, so it gets better. On the story for my 8th year. On the 7th year, I start school. I didn't go to nursery school. Straight to class 1. And on the 2nd year of my schooling, at the age of 8, on my 8th year, I go to boarding school. I went to boarding school in class 2. And I would like to think that I was still 7 years old, because I turn at the end of the year. So at that time, I had not yet turned 8. So I go to boarding school at the age of 7. And I usually thought it was 8, but looking at it, I turned at the end of the year. So I went when I was still 7 years old. And boarding school was not easy. I went to Asumbi Girls Boarding, and my sister was already there. Asumbi was very cold, and we used to shower outside in the field in the morning at around 6. That breeze, and we faked our water the evening before and kept it under the bed. By the time we were going to shower at 6, that water was extremely cold. And then you're showering in the field and there's a breeze. I remember I used to have a blue basin. I would go with my water, squat, and wait until it was appropriate for me to pour out my water, and then I go back to the dorm, dress up, and go to church. Because it was so cold, most of the young children, those who were in lower primary like me, we never used to shower. You'd go to the field with your water and just squat there, look around, hoping no one saw you. And then when it was appropriate, you pour out the water and go back to the dorm. Because even if you go back early, they would say you didn't shower. So we waited until it was appropriate, and then we went. But after some time, they changed that, and those who were in lower primary were able to shower in the afternoon because they were not going back to class. That was a good thing. But during my time, it was in the morning. It was hard. And I think at some point people had scabies. I don't remember having scabies, but people had scabies because of that. And it was not a good sight. People were in pain. People had scabies either on their legs, hands, or bottoms. I think I escaped that one. I didn't get the scabies. So in boarding school, my sister and brothers also went to boarding school. But I'm the one who went to boarding school when I was the youngest. Up to now, I joke that I'm the one that my mom hated the most because I was taken to boarding school at the age of 7. I tell you, children will judge you. What will you be judged for? I'm judging my mom for taking me to boarding school at the age of 7. And recently I asked her why she chose to take us to boarding school. And she told me she took us to boarding school because she was working. She was a secondary school teacher. My dad was also working. He was a head teacher. And so my mom said that her reason for taking us to boarding school was because there was no quality care at home. There was no one to take care of us at home because she had to work. But thinking of it, our house was always full. There were always people in our house. So I'm wondering, how is it that there was no one to take care of us? And there were all those people living in our house. And as they say, a bad excuse is better than none. It is not convincing for me, especially me who went to boarding school at the age of 7. I have a 7-year-old. In fact, she was born on 3rd of November. We share a birthday. I look at her. She is 7 now. And imagine taking her to boarding school. I can't comprehend that. And also, I don't understand still why I was taken to boarding school at the age of 7. I would want to think maybe because my sister was there, she thought, okay, her sister is there, she's going to take care of her. But then also, I was barely a child at the age of 7. And about quality care, there's no quality care in boarding school. The food, the environment. What I really liked about boarding school was my friends. I would go to school and disappear. I didn't even know how my staff got to the dorm. The moment I was in the school compound, I remember removing my shoes and running around. And Asumbi has jiggers. At some point, we had jiggers. And when you have jiggers, they are itchy in your... I had jiggers at some point, but not not a lot, maybe one or two, because we used to play bare feet. I'll just get to school and the first thing is go look for my friends. Have they arrived? Are they here? Can we go and play? I loved to play. Even as I grew up, when I was sent somewhere to go and mill maize, I would play until my mom sent a search party. I'll tell you about that as we go on. So I loved to play. Once I got to school, I looked for my friends and played with them. And going to boarding school did for me something that I am still struggling with: emotional attachment. Because I was always in school. The few times that I was home, I don't remember being very close to my mom. So I am with this, I am trying to make those emotional bonds, especially with my children. And as a parent, the thing that you lacked in your childhood, it is what you are most likely to overcompensate on in your parenting. So for me, it is the emotional attachment. And now that I know what I know, I try to catch myself so that I do not overcompensate, because when you overcompensate, it will destroy your children. That is one thing that I got in boarding school. The other thing that I got in boarding school that was not at home was violence. Not violence as in, let me explain the violence that I'm talking about. The teachers, the support staff, they were very cruel. And getting beaten in boarding school was the order of the day. I remember there was a place in Asumbi girls boarding called Golgotha. It used to happen on, was it on Fridays? I can't remember it properly, but that is a place where people really used to be beaten for whatever mistake they did. It was not a good place to be in. Yeah. But other than that, I think what I really enjoyed in school was playing with my friends. Once I got there, I forgot that I was home, my brothers went to boarding school. Alan and Simon, they went at maybe 10 or 12. Everyone in my house went to boarding, but I am the one who went at 7. And that still disturbs me to date. Why was I taken to boarding school at the age of 7? Everyone else went when they were a bit older. 12, 11. Yeah. So that is my story. They get intense as we go, because I'm realizing this is not just a challenge. I'm doing a lot of shadow work, which sometimes, not sometimes, which is very hard. It is very hard to reflect on those things that I went through. And I hope that as I do this, you also reflect on yours, so that we come out of the other side after these 45 days feeling better, feeling healed, and living our happy life. Because at the end of the day, what we all want is a happy life. So I'm pursuing that. my happy life. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.